Phil, welcome back to the program. I understand President Zelensky is on his way to D.C.?
It looks like it. He's scheduled to be there for Friday. But I I will believe it when I see it, whether or not he signs an agreement with Donald Trump to allow access to rare earth minerals and to kind of contribute to the contractor who rebuilds Ukraine. I mean, my concern is that the Trump administration and the Oval will continue to tweak the agreement, and who knows
I think it's
what's
bait
gonna
and
happen.
switch. I mean, the agreement that
I
Trump
think
has
so too. I think there's
published.
a distinct possibility.
Yeah, the agreement that Trump has published is not actually an agreement. It's an agreement to follow a document. I forget the name of the document, but something like, the attached schedule or whatever. It's an agreement to follow a timeline and a series of milestones that has not yet been written.
Yeah. Which is why I'm skeptical.
Yeah. Welcome. Me too.
As I say, I will believe it when I see it.
Yeah. So, I think most of us were unaware, I certainly was, that Ukraine was sitting on, I've heard anywhere from $1 to $5 trillion worth of rare earth minerals, and that might even be one of the main reasons Russia invaded. Tell us about this.
Well, it's tricky because it's the materials we're talking about lay mostly in the east of the country, along the actual line of conflict. So how this actually gets done is going to be a big question. Yes, there are estimates that vast quantities of metals and material that are suddenly more relevant in our 21st century world, notably, lithium. They went kind of untapped because they weren't relevant to what it is we're doing. Where we're talking about batteries, we're talking about new technologies that use these kind of metals. So it is entirely possible that yes, they are lying there dormant because they haven't been explored. It is also possible that this, and I have seen, this is not my own thought, but commentary by other people who kind of know this subject matter better, that to develop the actual industry that will be needed to extract these things will in and of itself be a way to create commerce, or to be a slush fund, or to the investment will be the return itself before the materials are actually even drawn from the earth. And so and also in addition to that, you're going to need to rebuild so much of that territory which is damaged. That will also, who gets those contracts? Is it going to be American contractors that are going to be rebuilding the infrastructure of the region so that you can extract these metals? Well, then, obviously then we go through a bidding process. Did Donald Trump's buddies get those contracts first and foremost? There's a lot of skepticism about this entire thing, but many Ukrainians are hanging their hopes on it because, quite frankly, they just want the war and the fighting to stop.
Yeah, I totally get it. What is the status of American weaponry? We had given F-35s or F-16s to Ukraine. F-16s, we've given them all kinds of advanced weapon systems. I'm assuming that we're no longer shipping spare parts and the bombs and bullets and things. At what point is the usefulness of the American weaponry system that the Ukrainians have going to vanish? Or do they have supply chains from within Europe that can make these things useful?
Well, increasingly, they're building their own domestic capability. Mm-hmm. Currently, Ukraine is about at 40% of their own domestic weapons industry. So they can do about 40% of their own needs.
Wow, that's great. A lot of that is drones, right?
A lot of it is drones. But in addition to that, they have their fighting vehicles, and they have their own anti-aircraft systems and things like that. But they're worried about the very specific weaponry and weapon systems that the United States has given to them. Not least of which because one, it's now a limited supply if America is now going to be withholding that support. But secondly, it's reliant on a lot of American systems, like take for example the GPS system for targeting, satellite imagery. Having said that, lots of Ukraine. There are Ukrainian. There's a Ukrainian effort to find substitute for this. So, like Starlink, for example, if Elon Musk were suddenly to withdraw, Starlink, they're looking at alternatives to that mobile satellite internet system, which they also use for things like drone control and targeting and logistics command and control.
Yeah.
So the Ukrainians are not without their own agency, but yes, obviously, if America suddenly says that's it, we're cutting everything off, they're going to be in a hard place. Look, Tom, last night was very, very intense. We got hit really hard here in Kiev. We had a massive attack. And it wasn't Patriot missile systems that we heard. I am used to hearing Patriots. I know what they sound like now. They are clearly, the Ukrainians are clearly reserving the Patriot missiles because they don't know how, the stockpile that they have, when they're going to get a replacement. So they instead used a German system, which is in essence a old-fashioned anti-aircraft, throw a bunch of metal up into the air like flak in World War II to hit drones that are coming in. And that was loud and a completely different sound in the Ukrainian capital. So they're seeking alternatives. They have alternatives that they can use, but make no mistake about it, without GPS, without Patriot missiles, without long-range artillery systems in the form of the HIMARS or the ATACMS, which we previously gave and said them as they attacked the infrastructure behind the lines for the Russians, their ammo depots and things like that. This war is going to get more difficult for the Ukrainians. They're talking to the Europeans. The Europeans are seeing that America is no longer a reliable ally, but yet Ukraine is an existential threat not only for this country, but for the continent. So they're stepping up. I don't think that was Trump's intent, but the result of it is the Europeans are saying, we've got to do this now. And what Trump may have done inadvertently is make America, I don't want to say insignificant, but that America can no longer be relied upon. So, all right, America, if you want to depart the security alliance that we've had for over the 80 years, which has kept, peace and security on the European continent, if you want to go, but know that we will not just acquiesce, and we will step up in turn. And that diminishes America's ability to affect influence. Like so many things that he does, he didn't see the next step, and he anticipated that Ukraine and Europe would bend the knee, and both Ukraine and Europe are saying, we hate to see you go, but you're not indispensable, and all you're doing is isolating yourself. Which is a sad thing to see as an American who loves both sides of the Atlantic.
As the last time we talked, you suggested, or at least what I took away from it, maybe I misunderstood, was that Europe just does not have the capacity right now to provide the weaponry at the scale that Ukraine needs. And that it would take most European countries some time, months, years, to build the defense infrastructure necessary to do that. It sounds like you just said the opposite of that. What am I missing?
Well, no, the intent is there. The capacity is still going to take some time to ramp up. What I'm referring to when they say to America, we hate to see you go, but we will because it's in our existential interest that we will have to now, not relying on America, ramp up our own defense systems, which is doing exactly what the Kremlin wants to do. They want to see this division between the USA and Europe.
Well, last night Trump said that the EU was just created to hurt America. I mean, that's been a Putin talking point for decades.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, look, the other thing that has happened, I'll finish my thought just quickly, is the fact that the intent is there, the capability is not.
Yeah.
Europe is intending to change that. And domestically, internally within Ukraine, they're also intending to step up where, America is now leaving a gap or a vacuum. So there's that. But, they can't stop fighting. And Trump's decision to do this, as you mentioned, kind of plays exactly into Russia's desires. About 15 years ago, give or take, Alexander Dugin, who I don't want to give too much credence to, but if you're not aware of who he is, he's kind of this
he's like the philosopher king of Russia.
King, exactly. And he's part of a movement that happened after the fall of the Soviet Union, but not to get too deep into the weeds. But about 15 years ago, he writes a treatise in which he says what we need to do in Russia is we can't break the Anglo-American alliance because of the special relationship. So what we need to do is shear off Britain from Europe, and they can stay with America, but we shear off Britain from Europe. And then once that is done, we shear off the Anglo-American alliance from the rest of Europe and the European Union.
Sounds
and
like
then
they're
we
following a script. I mean, that was
is
Brexit.
Almost exactly what has happened. We had Brexit. Now we are having the division between Europe and America.
Amazing.
And it is the design of the Kremlin. And we better wake up.